Hey everyone, thank you Lindsay, and thank you Adam for inviting me to participate in this CLE. It's really exciting to talk about one of the practice areas that is really growing during coronavirus, which is quite interesting even with courts being closed. So, or many of them have since opened, but with them having been closed. So a little bit about Fiore Rubel. I've run my PR agency for 18 years. We're located in a renovated barn in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, Bucks County. We have clients in 28 states, and I absolutely love what I do. I'm a third generation lawyer. My grandfather was a judge. My dad was a trial lawyer. I started in the legal industry at the age of 12 as a Xerox clerk, when they used to call us Xerox clerks. That was a long, long time ago, and worked up into office management. I also chair the Philadelphia Bar Association Risk Management Committee, and really like to talk about how all of these things, and this isn't an ethics program, but I do want to remind you that ethics matters, and it's something that we always keep in mind. So that being said, and if you see me switching my gaze, it's because I have to switch the slides on a different screen. And I only have 3 computer screens at my work, at my office now, because I'm juggling everything like all of you. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the state of the industry. And I do want to remind everyone, please ask questions. And Lindsay's going to monitor chat for me. But here's some interesting things. So I did some research on some of the news stories of late. And we have US divorce rates skyrocket amid coronavirus, the pandemic. For those of you who are members of the AAML, you may see that their survey is was showing difficulties for family lawyers during the pandemic. They've also seen divorce numbers go up. Separated parents are using social distancing contracts as weapons against their exes. You can tell me more than I'm telling you, obviously. So I'm not going to profess to be the expert on all the different issues that you're all facing with your clients. What I will say that now is the time to really think about what are all the issues. And as we go through the program, I'm going to give you lots of tips. And I may even call out to some great things that I know some of you have done over the years. So the AAML survey, they surveyed members, and it showed that 70% of members are receiving more calls from individuals wishing to initiate divorce. 45% are receiving calls to adjust child or spousal support due to the pandemic. 94% said courts are addressing cases remotely. You know this. 63% reported Zoom being used for remote court access. 51% reported that courts are more vigorously encouraging ADR considerations. Well, that's all fine and well until you have, your client or the opposing counsel's client who refuses ADR. So I'm sure you all see that on a daily basis. But this was in July. And feel free, if any of you are seeing something different, please put that in the chat and Lindsay will bring it to my attention, because I do want this, however possible, to be a conversation. And we'll make this presentation available. If you need any links to anything that I've shared, I can send those over to Adam and Lindsay after the program. But I want to let you know that I did do the research. So this is all good news for you. So let's look at some more numbers. Divorce by the numbers, 80 to 90% of family court cases have at least one self-represented litigant. The average cost, and now this seems really low to me, this was a national survey, was $15,005 in 2018. This is just really to show you big picture, what everything looks like. This all came from a Law 360 article. And really what my point in this is that attorneys do make a difference in divorce. And one of the things in terms of marketing and social media and being in thought leadership and putting yourselves out there, I can't tell you how often I hear people say, well, you know, can't I just do it myself? You all, I'm sure you've all heard it. You've heard it probably from family members, friends, all the people who ask in private chat in Facebook. So what I decided to do, and this is very different than any other presentation I've given, I decided to do a SWOT analysis. And if you're not familiar with a SWOT analysis, it's a marketing term where we look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And if you look at this graphic here, a strength is, and this is for the industry, like something that's industry-wide helpful. And a threat is an external, something that's bad, that can hurt us. And then your opportunities, and that's where we're gonna focus on the opportunities, on what you can be doing, and also knowing what some of the weaknesses are. So I've already mentioned family law matters have increased. Consumers are finding attorneys online now more than ever. And virtual meetings have exponentially increased access to legal counsel. That's if you're providing virtual meetings to prospective clients. So, and your clients. So these are the strengths as it's related to the changes that we've seen since COVID. So what are some of the weaknesses? Clients don't understand how to connect. They're not sure how to connect. During the more strict lockdown times, people didn't know how they can reach counsel, or if they could call from home. They didn't want searches to be found on their computers or their devices. Attorneys lack technologies or knowledge of technologies. And if you're one of them, I will tell you ethically, you need to understand technology. That is an ethical duty of lawyers today under the Pennsylvania rules of conduct. We all have Zoom fatigue, although I don't have Zoom fatigue today because I only had one other Zoom meeting, so I'm fresh and lively. We're managing work from home teams. We're managing work from home responsibilities. For those of you in Bucks County, or at least Central Bucks, our kids went back to school today. I think most kids went back. I have a senior in high school. I've been down checking on things a few times today, while not micromanaging, just making sure the systems are working properly. Client issues are different today. And then we have social media hurdles. So there's so much to think about in terms of some of the strengths and weaknesses, but then there's a lot of opportunities. We've had to pivot from in-person to online. That gives us more time. We've had to take time to update everything, or we can take time to update everything. We need to learn the new technologies, and now is the opportunity to do that. Unfortunately for family law attorneys, which is all of you, you're busy and you have to do these things. And I equate that to being a PR and crisis communicator. And I can tell you honestly, since January 1, we haven't come up for air. But we're still taking the time to learn the technologies, update the technologies. You have the opportunity to be a resource and a thought leader and to communicate frequently. So another statistic, 62.3% of marketing professionals have reported that marketing has become more important during COVID. For those of you in larger firms where you have firm budgets that are, an actual real marketing budget, that are cutting their marketing budgets, it's a huge mistake. And that's not me saying it should come to us. It's just a mistake, because there's such an opportunity right now to capitalize on thought leadership. And we've seen this across the board with all of our clients who have not only survived, but thrived. So some additional opportunities. You can call. So here's some write this down moment. You can call current and past clients and referral sources and just check in, or email them and check in. Now's the time, if you have 15 minutes a day, to connect with someone, especially a referral source, who doesn't practice in the same areas as you. Connect on social media with referral sources and other thought leaders to identify opportunities for collaboration and other cross-marketing opportunities. And I'll talk about what those are in a moment. And please, I beg you, I'm begging you, if you do nothing else, update your online profiles, your bio, your LinkedIn profile, your super lawyer profiles. And I'm going to say this, don't hate me. Super lawyers is a crock of you know what, but family law clients think it's the greatest thing ever. I have very well-educated, smart, affluent people who have called me and said, I want to get a divorce. Who do you know is a super lawyer? And the first thing I say is, how about we start with competent representation? But if you think super lawyers doesn't matter, when it comes to family law, it does. Update all of your profiles, and if you have a Chambers of Commerce profile for your firm or an individual profile. Now, this is such a great opportunity to do that. And I want to talk about, frankly, I don't remember from 5 days ago if I put bios in here. So I'm just going to share that your profile needs to talk about what you do for the client, not just who you are. As attorneys, we were taught over the years to say, oh, I went to this law school and I graduated magna cum laude and I'm in this inn of court, and that's great. Congratulations. But nobody cares. What they care about is, can you help me with my problem? How are you going to help me? How are you going to handhold me? Are you a quote unquote bulldog lawyer? I just got that asked last week. I need a bulldog family law attorney. And by the way, I get requests for family law attorneys more than any other practice area from friends who know that I'm a lawyer, and they often will say, who's a super lawyer? Who's a really tough? And then there's other people who say, who is that person that I can trust to get this done quickly and deal with my incorrigible ex? So really take the time, but remember to think in terms of benefits. What's in it for them, not who I am and all the things I have done. So get away from the I have done this and the I have done that, or Miss or Mr. So-and-so has done. This is a relationship, and family law is more of a relationship, in my opinion, than any other practice area. By the way, I think when I joined my dad's firm, he was a general practitioner, small practice in Philly. And he's like, look, I don't need another general litigator. So why don't you focus on family law and criminal defense? And if you want to know why I focus now on proactive communications, is because I dipped my toes in family law and was really bad at it. I give you all a lot of credit. It's one of the hardest areas of practice. You all know that, but I want to say that I empathize. And it also means that you're constantly hand-holding, you're constantly playing the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the person begging your client not to do that thing that they shouldn't do, like violate their restraining orders. That was my first case. I said to my dad, you wonder why I don't want to practice family law? For those of you who don't know me well, and there's some of you on the call who do, I am an Italian-American from South Philly with a little bit of an attitude. So having a client violate a restraining order after telling them not to really frustrated the heck out of me. That's just that's the real side of me. So there are just some of the opportunities of things you can be doing that are really easy to do, doesn't take a lot of time. I would say put it on your Outlook calendar or whatever calendar you use, if you use Google Calendars, to update your bios, the ones I've listed on the last slide, every 6 months. Update them every 6 months. Please, I beg you, if you do nothing else, if you do that one thing, it will help you get more business. And I promise you that. So what are some of the threats? Your number one threat is alternative legal service providers. They're coming out with new ones constantly, and you already know LegalZoom, Hello Divorce, you may be aware of. That's getting a lot of traction now. If you're not, you should be. Get Divorce Papers. These are all real websites that are getting a lot of traction. They're getting media coverage. They have big budgets. They are backed by venture capitalists. So if you're in a solo practice or in a small firm and you have no marketing budget, these companies have hundreds of thousands of dollars in their media budgets and their marketing budgets. And you may think, well, I don't want those clients anyway. I'm going to guess some of you are going, well, they're not the ones who want to pay for my service. That's not always true. There's a lot of people who don't understand the value of great legal counsel. And if they saw some thought leadership as to why counsel is important to have, they would think twice. So I just share that with you because these really are, for many of you, this is the biggest threat. So with content marketing, the goal is to share useful, timely, relevant, timely, I'm going to say timely like 10 times, timely, relevant, created, and curated content. I'm going to tell you what created and curated means. It's to establish trust. And again, the idea of timely, relevant, valuable content, and to leverage content within an integrated communication strategy. So in the next slide, I'm going to show you, it's going to show you how to develop your own mini strategy so that you can have an idea. And feel free to take a screenshot. We'll also send you a PDF of the slides. This is for you to use amongst yourselves. But content strategy is what I like to equate it to, and in my book, I equate it to building a house or building an addition or opening an office. You don't just start doing work without a blueprint or a plan. So when we talk about content strategy, and right now, content is the most important form of communications. It's never been more important before. I've been saying this for the last 10 years. With COVID, it has hit the roof. Absolutely hit the roof. It's unbelievable how important content is. So you want to determine your goals. And if you took this content strategy and thought about it like a trial plan, let's say you have a divorce matter that you know is going to go to court, and you have to determine the best strategy to get the judge to rule in your favor. You're going to determine your goals, right? You're going to assess the audience. You're going to know who the judge is. You're going to know how they typically rule. Do they typically rule for one spouse over the other? How do they handle these types of matters? Are they a judge that's easy to deal with, or one that's a royal, you know what? You're going to develop your plan of attack, what you're going to say in the courtroom, what you're going to present, your evidence. You're going to then implement tactics. You're going to go to court. And forget the monitor, track, and adjust as it relates to family law litigation. I'm going to talk about these things, but I want you to think it's no different than practicing law. So a lot of people think what I do is so different. You're communicating a message to a target audience to elicit a response, whether you're doing that in the courtroom, or for me right now in a classroom, as you will, or through content, it's the same thing. So what do you want to accomplish? What are your goals? Do you want to be known as a complex divorce attorney that represents women or men or same-sex couples or whatever the case may be? What do you want to accomplish? And what are some of the business goals? Are you trying to grow your business by 15%? Actually put goals on things. We as lawyers don't do that enough in the business of law. Are you trying to grow your practice enough to bring on associates? What does that look like? Are you trying to put the word out there to recruit associates? So think about what your goals are, and then who's your audience. So when it's prospective clients, 9 times out of 10, what lawyers say to me is, I want to reach affluent people in these counties who respect lawyers, who will hire us and pay us our premium. That's usually what we hear. That's not always the case, but that's usually what we hear from family law attorneys. Then you have to, the word engaged, who is your engaged audience? I don't mean the ones who have an engagement ring. I mean those who are actively online in certain platforms. Example, and I know family lawyers hate Facebook with a passion. None of you want to be on there. I get it. I understand. You don't want your clients to find you on there. Don't use your last name. But if people who know, like, and trust you don't know what you're doing or how you can help them or other people they know, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because Facebook, unfortunately, reaches more people who are prospective clients than any other platform. LinkedIn reaches your referral sources and potential clients who are working people. And Twitter reaches the media more than anything. So unless you want to really be out there talking to the media and engaging, I despise Twitter personally, but you can use it as a thought leadership tool. For my opinion, it takes 10 times more work. So for me, I just share things there. I engage a little bit, but it's one particular audience, which is my legal marketing colleagues. And that's the idea of which social networks will work best to reach your audience. Instagram is another great one. It really does reach the predominantly women, but it does also reach men over the age of 18, many of whom are married, if you break down the statistics. And what protocol do you have or need for content marketing and social media engagement? What do you need to do that? What I like to tell people is if you put in 15 minutes a day and that's it, that's more than you've probably put in your whole career. And if you did that if you started your workday 15 minutes earlier, or stayed 15 minutes later, or took a 15-minute shorter lunch and just did social media and content marketing, you're doing more than you were before, and it doesn't have to be that daunting. Literally, that's how I wrote both of my books, and I'm in the middle of a third book, and it was 15 minutes a day because that's all I have. 2 kids, mom, farm in Bucks County, full-time CEO, 10 employees. It's not like I'm taking a sabbatical to write a book. So again, or to engage in social media, content marketing, and thought leadership. So then when you develop your strategy, what type of content will work best to meet your goals? And again, I'm going to talk about created and curated, and how and when is your audience engaging? So for example, if your firm does electronic newsletters, this has changed a lot with COVID, we're finding Tuesday mornings and Wednesday mornings to have the highest open rates. Mondays have become awful. Nobody opens anything on Monday because they're getting back to their desk. They've got all these emails from the weekend and from Friday that they didn't finish. And Friday, people are checking out. So Tuesdays and Wednesdays for emails. Interestingly enough, on LinkedIn, this is my own personal test that I did recently. If I post between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., I get 5 times more engagement than if I post after 3 p.m. I don't like to be on there much during the day, but I have to set the time aside during lunch because I know that I'm going to get the engagement at that time. And the truth is, when we put out content, we spend a lot of time developing thought leadership. And I want to make sure it's getting out to people who can use it. So it's just good to know those things. And there's lots of research on all of that. And then implementing a content strategy, like an editorial calendar. What does that mean? You could create an editorial calendar based on topics that are timely to your audience. Like, I'm sure there are all sorts of custody issues that deal with virtual schooling and custody. And virtual schooling started in the last 2 weeks in all of our counties. Prime opportunity. I know half of my friends who are going through divorces are all fighting about, first it was, no, we want them to go fully virtual. No, I want them to go, I want them to do the hybrid, and the parents are fighting. And then, so you know more about this than I do. I just get to hear my friends all share these stories with me. So, but there are opportunities, right? So are there opportunities around holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas, about when travel reopens, about taking your kids away or moving? I know there's always issues about if someone wants to move out of state, but anything that you can create that is more of evergreen, although pandemic, there's a lot of new issues around pandemic. So create a strategy. What am I going to write about? If you do one thing a month for 12 months, you've done more than you may be doing now. So that strategy can be once a month. Use tools that streamline your process. If you're not familiar with Hootsuite, that's one of them. If you have a WordPress site, CoSchedule is another. There's lots of tools out there. You can schedule social media posts on Facebook. You can't schedule on LinkedIn. You can schedule them for Twitter and Instagram. And engage with people. It's called social media for a reason. It's not one-way communications media, it's social, because people are communicating with one another. And then what you want to do is, like I just said, I've been monitoring my LinkedIn posts and I'm tracking the engagement. We also, at my agency, we track for ourselves and all of our clients, blog engagement, podcast engagement, website engagement. So we're seeing, for example, what are people reading on our blog? What are they reading on the media where we've been quoted in the media? What are they reading on or listening to for our podcast? And then we serve more of those menu items, as you will. So I think of the restaurant that you go to that has the featured item or most popular. If you use, what's that food app? One of the delivery apps, they'll say most ordered or most popular items. Think about the most popular items. What are people reading about? Because that's what they're searching for. And then you can serve more of that. So you're monitoring, tracking, and you're adjusting the type of content based on the data. So that's what a content strategy looks like. And again, it does not have to take tons and tons of time. So I like to tell people to use the COPES model. We used to say COPE, create once, publish everywhere, but I disagree with that. I think it's create once, publish enthusiastically and strategically. And you have the pat myself on the back stuff, like, oh, look at us, we're super lawyers. And you still should put those out. That is content. And when written correctly, it has a search engine optimization value. But then if you look at below the upside down triangle, all the different places where you can share things. And then what are the benefits? It's credibility, thought leadership, retention, and lead generation. So, and as I said, you could either take a screenshot of this if you'd like, but we will make sure that you have a PDF of all of these slides. And Lindsay, I'll make sure to, if you want, I'll just send you a full PDF of the program afterwards, or you're welcome to create it yourself.
Okay, thank you.
But I want to make sure people have the slides so you don't have to say, I don't know how to create a screenshot. So What's important to understand too, for those of you in firms that do engage in marketing and social media and content generation, is that individuals raise firm and brand visibility exponentially. So if my company, Fury Rubel, posts a podcast, our engagement, we might see 200, 300 people engage, which means they might see it, read it, like it, comment on it. Usually it's much less than that. I shared a post on LinkedIn 2 weeks ago, and within an hour, it was viewed by 2,450 people. Now, that'll never happen with the brand, like a small company like ours, 10 employees. And part of the reason is the algorithms of LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter block the number of readers that see the brand content. And so when you're posting as an individual, they don't see it as something that they should be getting paid marketing for, like their sponsored posts. So it's something to be mindful of, because if you think, well, my firm is already doing that, it's not enough. And if you think, oh, well, we have a marketing department, they can update my LinkedIn profile. No, you need to be doing it. So there's some statistics here. I don't need to read these to you. You can all see it on the screen. If anybody is listening, again, we'll get them out to you, but I don't want to read a whole entire presentation. So it's exponential. Some other things about visual content. Content with relevant images gets 94% more views than content without images. 94%. Think about that. And I'm not talking about just headshots. You know, it could be something that you create on your computer that it doesn't have, you don't have to spend a lot of money. If you want to learn a little app on your phone, if you have an iPhone, I think it works on Androids, something called Canva, C-A-N-V-A. You can create little images. I use something on my desktop, which I love, called Snagit, S-N-A-G-I-T, where you can do a screenshot and then edit the screenshot. So for example, my second slide with all of the headlines, they were just screenshots. If I then took a screenshot of that whole thing, I now have a piece of image that I could share if I were tweeting about this program. So just to give you an idea of how content can be generated without needing to spend a lot of money, perhaps on a graphic designer. 85% of adults consume content on multiple devices. By 2021, 82% of the global web traffic will be video. The nice thing about the pandemic is it created an opportunity for us to do less professional video. Don't tell any of my professional videographer friends that. But just like doing these programs, your Zoom programs and CLEs or speaking engagements are creating video content that is shareable. So start thinking about content. It no longer has to be perfect. And some of my former clients are on this, and on this program today, and they'll say, oh, but Gina, you said 5 years ago you had to hire a videographer. If you're going to do firm bios, like video bios, do it right, do it with a professional. But if you're just going to do chats or like fireside chats or ask the lawyer, where you're not really giving legal advice, that can be done by Facebook or LinkedIn or Zoom or things like that, and record it. Business to business engagement has increased 65% when there's a use of infographics for marketing and business development. Why does that matter to you? Because you also market to referral sources. It's not just business to consumer, because referrals for many of you may be a very large portion of how you're getting your business. Infographics with color increase content by 80%. Why? Because people like to see things visual. And 62% of people are visual learners. So that's the majority of the audience that you're trying to reach. So it's just important to be mindful of these things when you're doing content. Always have a visual. Always. Lots of benefits of content marketing: awareness, credibility, business development, client retention, issue advocacy, recruiting, SEO, reputation management, validation. I've said all these things throughout. And so I just wanted you to see it, that there's a lot of benefits. Drawback, yes, it takes time. But again, if you think about it in increments of 15 minutes a day, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. So the rule of thirds. Think about it as a third of the time you spend on social engagement, a third of the time sharing curated content, and a third of the time sharing created or original content. There I go with those terms again. And I said that I would explain what they mean. And I just want to do a time check because I do not see time here on my screen. It's
we are at 5:42.
Okay, so we're doing okay. Curated content. Where does it come from? Curated is finding content relevant to your audience that you can share. Okay, here are places to find curated content: Google alerts, trade publications, referral source news. So let's say you have a firm that is strictly personal injury and they're a big referral source. Share their news, engage with them. Nonprofit partners, whether it be a legal access, a bar association, any one of the legal nonprofits. When I say client news, I am not referring to individual clients, but maybe their companies. You really have to be careful. You don't want to share your individual client news. Government agencies, anything that's changing. Was it 2 or 3 years ago when Pennsylvania changed the no-fault divorce? It was 2 years and they changed. So those types of things, making sure you're sharing those, not only writing blogs about them because that takes time, but sharing that you're on top of the news. So it doesn't have to come from you. And it can even be community events. Wow. Oh, look, you shared that you're going to be out at not that any of us are going out to anything right now, but let's perhaps say it was last year this time. You're going to be going to the Bucks County Bike Race and Doylestown Arts Festival, and it's a great time to come out and show your support. Again, there's just so much that you can share that doesn't have to be, it just keeps you engaged. It keeps you out there. But the more relevant it is, obviously, the better. But that's what curated content is. A third of the content you share should be curated. What does that take? On your phone, it takes opening your phone, seeing that post, and sharing it. That's all it takes. You could do that before you get out of bed. Original content. What are they? It's if you've received an award or a ranking or data trends that you might be seeing, or events and programs, if you've spoken to the media or appeared in the news. It's new technologies your firm might be adopting. Blogs that you've written, case study outcomes where they're generic and not about a particular person. CLEs or seminars that you're giving, podcasts that you've been on or that you're recording, presentations, press releases, volunteer work. I mean, lawyers love to volunteer. And I'm not just talking about pro bono. I'm talking about, going and serving at a soup kitchen or, getting involved. It's okay to share those things, but not be self-serving about it. A lot of us think, well, I don't want to share that. It seems self-serving. It's not self-serving to let other people know that these organizations exist and, please join me in celebrating this organization. It's all in the way you say it. So that's your created content. So this is a laundry list of tips for effective legal blogs. Single topic, one topic. I'm not asking for a written brief. Stay away from providing legal advice. You already know that. Generalizations. Give opinions when it's in the firm's best interest. Now, for those of you who know me or have heard me speak 5 years ago, I said 500 to 800 words. That's no longer a good thing to do. More than 1,800 words will get picked up by Google algorithm. They will ignore in their algorithms shorter content today. It will show up, but you're more likely to show up and be considered relevant at 800 or more words. So I just share that. That's for the best search engine optimization. What is search engine optimization? For any of you who are wondering, it means making sure you can be found when somebody is searching for Montgomery County divorce lawyer or Bucks County custody lawyer, and you have to remember that people in family law search by county, by city, by municipality, by borough. That's how they search. The majority of them are looking for somebody next door. They know, most people know that it has to, they're not searching for Pennsylvania. They're not searching just, they will search generally for family law attorney, but they're going to get a lot of irrelevant results if they have their tracking turned off as to their location. So you need to be mindful of putting in locations. Use bullets and lists as often as possible. Your titles and subheadings with keywords are the most important, and please don't be cute. I see these things like, I don't know, we as lawyers want to be the most prolific writers, and we will have the most ridiculous title, like all the things you should know and more. About what? You know, it could be 10 things you should know about Bucks County family law courts or Chester County custody matters, or, you know, again, it has to be search language rich. Link to other sources outside your firm. So links are very important, both internal and external. It helps to validate that it's relevant and good content. Quote others whenever you can. Now, in here, you can't quote your clients unless you quote them in a way that they're anonymous, or prospects. That might be in other practice areas in your firm, like corporate practice areas. If you're going to quote a client, just use initials, first name, last initial, if they allow you, those types of things. But every blog should link out, should have some sort of quote in it whenever you can. Ours don't always, it's not always relevant. Whenever we can, we try to. And then one of my favorite things to talk about is how to identify topics. So the secret is to keep a notebook. So I have a notebook on my desk and it says, every day I'm hustling. And in the back, and I like to say that I practice what I preach. I'm not going to show you my list, but I have a list of different things that people ask me on a regular basis. And it could be, you know, how can I get more direct leads? Whatever the question is as a lawyer. And I write it down and then I'll say, all right, to my team or to myself, you know, what's a good blog topic on this? Who gets the house? Splitting assets after layoff, divorce in PA during COVID, virtual schooling, parent or sibling gets COVID, what do you do? So I just threw some general topics here. You know, what if one parent won't wear a mask? These are some of the, by the way, general topics that people are asking about every day. Now, I know that one of the FAQs you get all the time is, how much will it cost? Please don't answer that. We all know that you all get that question. I get that question. That's not what I mean by FAQs. I'm talking about things that people are searching for that you can be a thought leader on, and then they can find you. Writing effective blog headlines. They need to be memorable, answer why people should care. Draft the headline last. We as lawyers always want to draft from beginning to end and think it's perfect. I don't put a title on something until after I've written it because I usually find a good tidbit somewhere in there. Keep it short and powerful, active voice. I said it twice, don't get cute. Utilize PR tactics. If you're speaking publicly, put it on your local patch. It's free. Introduce yourself to members of the media. You know, this is something I do. I've noticed that you write about these types of topics. If you ever need a resource, please reach out to me. Write opinion editorials, press releases. So our next press release for Fiore Rubel is going to be about why we're staying virtual. We're not going back to an open office. Why does it matter? Because we care about diversity. And we want to put that out there. And we're using it. Our goal is recruitment. We want to recruit a more diverse prospective employees from across the country. So we want to put that out there as a press release. And we'll also search engine optimize it and things like that. Share photos and captions like those nonprofit events that you do, that volunteer work that you do, when you can be outdoor, or if you are out there serving at a soup kitchen with a mask. So lots of things that you can do. Follow journo request on Twitter. There are journalists who are looking for people to comment on things. You just might find something that's relevant to you. So these are just different things you can do. And if you haven't considered being on a podcast or getting involved in podcasts, I will tell you that at Fiore Rubel, we launched On Record PR in March. It was in the works for a year. It just so happened that it coincided with COVID. As a result of our podcast alone, we have seen a 600% increase in engagement on our website. Our direct leads for new business have increased over 100%. We are a service provider. We provide a service just like you. Our podcast has knocked it out of the park. And I'll say this, we have a lot of we talk to a lot of experts on legal marketing, and then a lot of diversity issues, business management issues for lawyers. This is not for me to sell. This is to say, check out some of the ones that you think would be relevant to you. And if you have a recommendation for a topic or someone that you think, hey, you might want to consider interviewing, I'm always open to that. With that, we just have a few minutes left. It's almost everyone's dinner time. So if you have any questions, I'm open to them. I would recommend it through chat just because it'll be hard to monitor 35 people if everybody wants to talk at the same time. But I do have a few minutes. Or Lindsay, if you have any thoughts that you'd like to share.
Sure, I'll just throw out, Kathy, one of our members, did write into the chat box that she has been using Facebook specifically for content. And I think that's a good thing to point out, because it's not just about even on Facebook, if you're mainly using it for personal purposes, it can be a great way to put your name out there so that your personal contacts do know and understand what you're doing for a living.
And I use virtual backgrounds. I see that one of our participants, is it William? Do you go by William or Bill?
Bill.
So you have a nice virtual background. Consider for your Zoom calls. I chose not to. I don't always use a virtual background, but I can. For example, let's see, which one will I choose for you today? I guess, it'd be nice for all of us to go to Greece, but I'll give you my podcast. That's the backwards one. This is the forwards one. So, we have one for our podcast. These are really easy to make, but having a virtual background for your presentation so that if you're taping a presentation, you have that. It's another technique. Anything else anyone else is doing from a marketing, business development, thought leadership perspective that I might not have shared? All right, well then I guess you all have a lot of work to do.
There is another question from Kathy, our member. She says, as a solo, what do you recommend I focus on? Which platform?
So as a solo, I would say, sharing thought leadership on Facebook and LinkedIn. I wouldn't discriminate between the two, Kathy, because as family law attorneys, you're going to get referrals. You want to remind people in your networks that that is what you do. I can't tell you how often it's about being top of mind. And you think, well, why didn't that person refer that to me? It's because they just weren't thinking of you at that moment. So it's really about being top of mind. I just got a new business inquiry. I monitor a couple of chat groups in various listservs, and they're relevant listservs. Your solo and small firm listservs are always talking about, well, who should I go to for this or that? So monitor those too. And I sent a private message to someone who was asking for a particular resource. And she said, you know what? I completely forgot that you do this. Can I schedule a call with you next week? My firm is looking for a full service marketing agency. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to, So it doesn't have to be salesy. As a lawyer, I've never been comfortable with the sales approach. It's being more of a resource. So that's the answer to your question, Kathy. And I just want to be mindful of time. We have 2 more minutes. Yep. So
and your comment just made me think of something. And what are your thoughts on actual paid advertising for attorneys, specifically in the family law field?
Loaded question. I would say that for referrals, if you want to support your bar associations and nonprofits, it's always a good idea to do that, but don't anticipate you're going to get any return on investment. That's more of supporting your bar associations and nonprofits. Sponsorships need to be strategic. I am not a fan of paid to play on social media, and we've done a lot of testing. I don't want to say anything that can be held against me, but I don't usually recommend that clients do paid posts on LinkedIn or Facebook for various reasons. But if you're not doing anything else, like if you're not doing any social engagement or content marketing, you need to do something. The problem with the lawyer categories is they are the most expensive categories. So in your competition that is doing it, like, and you know who they are, they're spending a boatload of money, a boatload. And if you think I'm joking, I'm talking that some of the local Philadelphia firms that are doing paid advertising for personal injury, for example, or workers' comp, are spending over $1 million a year just in broadcast. So tell me that you want to compete with that as a small firm. Right. You don't. So if you get more involved in search and people find you organically, you're going to have 1,000 times better return on investment than they will. And you also don't need to hire people to answer your phones. So folks, I will stay on for 10 minutes. It is 6 o'clock. Anybody wants to drop off, please do. I respect your time. It's the end of the formal presentation. I'm happy to stay on and answer a few questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gina. We appreciate you being here.